The Faraway Paladin has been a show I've been keeping my eye on for some time because, based on what I've heard from people who've experienced the source material, that it's an incredibly well-written series. While the trailers didn't look like the most high-quality fantasy isekai production you're gonna see this season, it did give me a sense that there was something different about this, and I think the best way I could sum up walking out of this episode what I feel about the future of however many more episodes are in production here is massive potential. You have a human being raised by the undead. You have a skeleton, you have a mummy, and you have a ghost, and each of them are teaching and training in different ways, but what are we building up? I mean, the isekai portion to this show, it could, probably you walk into this and without much thought, you're probably thinking this is just a fantasy show, and then they do, because isekai sells, they say, hey, he was actually reincarnated. And the fuzziness and the haziness about his memories and situations, like we get a sense that he failed in his previous life, the typical formula, but I like the fact that it's not overly in your face, and probably throughout the story you're going to learn more about what his original life was, but clearly first and foremost that this is a story of second chances. You can very much treat it as a fantasy show where it is its own unique thing, even if it has that traditional hook that either you love or you hate, and either way, I don't think it's going to be a bother for you. The thing that I really came out appreciating is that the world and the situation was clearly first and foremost. Often when you have a show like this, character, magic, reincarnated, look at these powerful looking creatures or creepy looking creatures, clearly we gotta go fight a demon lord, clearly we gotta go fight a hero, right? One of those two things is almost always the likely scenario. That wasn't what was happening here. Granted, while watching the episode and how focused they were on training him, you have Gus, who is the ghost mage, clearly focused on the magical side of things, getting some information about words and writing them and pronunciation. You have Blood, who is the physical combat hunter survivalist, and then you have Mary, who's almost like the mother figure who teaches the everyday things, which even Will, the main character in question, says that's the one he learns from the most. But throughout this episode, they're building up that there was a mystery about the bread, because he's clearly the only human. There's 4 characters we see in this episode. 1 is human, the rest are undead. They don't talk about what happened to humans, if there are other humans, it's just someday he'll learn the truth. And apparently she goes off and she prays, and there's bread somehow. When does she have the time? And while watching this episode, my assumption was, they seem friendly, they clearly reincarnated this kid, most likely we're gonna go kill a hero. Like, that's just the thought I had. So the idea of her not letting him see what she does in her, I think they mentioned it was 3 times in the day, to me said it was going to be like they're sacrificing humans or they're doing something evil. What I liked about the twist to it was that rather than going in the twist of it being dark and brutal, rather it was something a lot more spiritual, that they seemingly are just genuinely good people and that they actually are just raising him for maybe selfless reasons, or maybe because they failed in their own life, they want to give someone a second chance. But the idea that there's different gods in their world, and some gods don't like the other, very much kind of like Greek, Roman, Egyptian mythology, right? The idea that the god that she prayed to her entire life, now punishes her because the god that they made a pact with, which most likely granted them their immortality of undeadness, I guess is what we could call it, now burns her multiple times a day. So while Will thought it was her about to be isekai'd herself or get burned, while yes, it's painful, it's something that she refuses to give up her faith. The fact that they committed to something like that rather than her just being an evil scumbag, it really kind of gave me a refreshing taste of fantasy is probably the way I'd sum it up. Because this episode might be considered slow to some people, especially those who like the in-your-face, go kill a demon lord, go attack a hero, do something, right? But what we saw was training, right? And it actually kind of gave me some similar vibes to that of most slice of life series, like those slice of life fantasy shows where there isn't a grand adventure, but clearly there will be a form of adventure. The opening itself says as much, and the poster image and things like that just give me that feeling. But the fact that they're not rushing into that fantasy adventure, the fact that we're letting, we start as a baby, we see the fear to then the hope of getting a second chance as a kid, and growing up. And I don't know how long it will take, maybe 1 more episode, maybe 2 more. Based on the title of next week's episode, it seems more Gus focused, so I wouldn't be shocked if each of these 3 parental figures the kind of father, mother, and sensei kind of mentor figures each get an individual episode before parting off. I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if episode 4 is when maybe he starts to adventure outside and explore the unknown. There could very well be twists and turns that are shocking and brutal, but the fact that episode 1 was confident enough to either A, properly adapt, or just say, this is the type of content that we believe in, is really impressive. I think the worst thing you could say about this production is that it isn't the most detailed on a visual level. Now, there's actually quite a lot of inexperienced people working on this production, and that did have me a little worried, but I personally like the way the show looks. I'm a firm believer, based on just experience actually doing my own animations from time to time, to also knowing how the industry works. The more polished and detailed a character model is, especially if there's going to be any form of action or sakuga, things like that, the harder it is to make it look consistent in those high-octane scenes. And we got a little bit of a taste of action in terms of speed and momentum, and the fact that the colors are very flat and there isn't these hyper-crisp details says to me that it will be easier to keep a show like this looking consistent than if you tried to be very, very detailed and then in return within a few episodes, the production tanks and it doesn't look that good. So yes, if we just look at it at face value, it's pretty flat colors, it's not the most creative line work, but I do think there is a charm about the almost slice-of-life wholesomeness of how things look, and when it does get into the action, I think we'll have a lot more consistent of a production than had they done more details on the character models themselves. So that's just what I want to say on the matter, and I have to say I do love the background work. I think the background work has some of the best details in the show, which is no surprise because background details generally don't move, they're just there to fill a scene, so you can put a little more attention and detail into those trees and bushes and landscape shots, which I really, really enjoyed. And just seriously, I mean, if you need to sell me on 4 characters who are very different but seemingly have a family-type bond going on, and what their purpose of training this kid is, like, because maybe they have a time limit, maybe they'll only be there for so long before the god decides to put them under again, or maybe they just want to give someone a chance at life because maybe they feel guilty about their original. It's hard to say, but I mean, if you need to sell me on believing that they have good intentions for Will, they definitely sold me. I mean, without much struggle. I mean, most of this episode I was thinking one, if not all of them, might have bad intentions, and maybe they still do. And if so, then you did a great job at selling me on them being genuine, because seriously, that was the perfect opportunity to have a human sacrifice on the altar, and instead you just have someone dedicated to their faith. And while yes, this will be considered slow to a lot of people, this shit has a lot of potential, and I really hope many people stick by with this one with me, because views or not, this is a show that I think I'll have a blast covering, but I guess we'll see where it goes from here, right? I'd love to know your own thoughts and feelings on FARAWAY Paladin episode 1 down below. Are you excited for future episodes? What did you think? Favorite moment, least favorite moment? Let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.